podcast. I'm JogeYip Shibe, and I'm with George, who is with Doge Yip, and we're going to talk about Dogecoin and just a lot of different stuff, and most importantly about Doge Yip. So let's get started. George, how did you get involved with cryptocurrencies, in particular Dogecoin?
I don't exactly remember when I started following Bitcoin, but maybe the last 2 years I've been just reading news articles about Bitcoin. And then I had pretty much a eureka moment, maybe January 1st this year,
Okay.
about possibly setting up a social network on using a cryptocurrency. And I had heard about Dogecoin, in the year previous, just because it had been in the news with Bitcoin, and Dogecoin ended up being the easiest way for me to actually get coins into a wallet to start testing stuff. So that's how I got involved with Dogecoin originally.
Okay, well, let's talk about the eureka moment. What made you think of combining, social media and cryptocurrencies? What was it that you saw that you didn't think anyone else was seeing? Uh-oh.
It was really just a real transaction chain, and before that, I didn't think about using that. I think you get 20 characters for an address per
Yes.
transaction, and all of a sudden I thought, hey, I can use some of those characters to encode messages. And at first I tried using like a dictionary compression, so I set up a library with like 10,000 words, and each word corresponded to one letter that you would see in the address. So I basically said, when I see this letter, I'm going to put this word in there, and all of a sudden you could put 20 words in a row in a message, and if you use that library, you could decode the message. And it just kind of spun from there, where then I thought, what if we could link these addresses together, so we could have a series of words still using dictionary compression that were linked by specific characters that you might never use in a normal word, because use hex to encode the characters into these addresses, and there's some hex characters that you just don't even correspond to a letter that you would use in English.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty much I thought, wow, this is doable. It's a database, and essentially a database, and if we use this as a database, I can kind of do put everything else together, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but let's see where it goes. And
from there, it formed into the microblog that you have now, which I have used myself, and I actually kind of like. How did you get started? What made you think that, okay, maybe we're just messages and people pay for messages and talk to one another in that fashion?
I'm not exactly sure. I know maybe about a year ago I was toying with the idea of, hey, what if we made a microblog of some sort that people could send a letter in instead of sending, or instead of posting online, they could send a letter in. The cost to post would be, the cost of a stamp. And I couldn't figure out how to make that work, but that was one of my earlier ideas on how to create like a post per or a pay per post type of service. But the other thing that pay per post allows you to do is it gives people like an incentive to post good content, because they got skin in the game. They're actually putting money where they're putting their words, and it also kind of acts as a filter to keep out spam, because with email it's really cheap to spam someone or spam a whole bunch of emails to a whole bunch of different addresses, because the cost is like the cost of electricity plus an internet connection. It's not much, but once you have to start paying even tiny fractions of a cent to actually post, messages to a service, then spam just isn't viable anymore.
Yes, and plus when you have like Gmail and stuff, doing targeted ads is, searching through your emails, it's kind of unnerving. But what I personally liked about DogeYip, and it took you a little while to work out the kinks, is, like you said, the good content. Like, people are putting their money where their mouth is. Plus, you're not getting spam. So when you're going on there and you're commenting with somebody and you're having a conversation, it's going to be, kind of real, authentic. But at the same time, you're not going to have someone because you mentioned, oh, Sony, all of a sudden you're going to get a bunch of Sony ads hit at you at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and even just using the favorite function that's there. I mean, if you use a favorite function on Twitter or Facebook, it doesn't really mean much. You're just clicking a button. Here, you're sending, I think, once everything's encoded, it costs like 14 Dogecoins or something like that, give or take.
Yeah, so you're like almost tipping an individual for their comment or for their post or for whatever their thought was for at the time. And I find this fascinating because it's also an old school in a sense, because I don't know how soon you were on the internet, but I remember as a child all those boards where it's just like a little screen and people were just talking to each other through sentences one at a time sometimes, or whole paragraphs, and that seemed to have gone away with the way social media has, where it's more video and audio and pictures and stuff. Okay. And what is your skill background, George? Because you were talking about compression and dictionary and things like this, and I've seen some of your stuff on GitHub. I mean, are you in the tech field? Is that where you started at?
Yeah, I'm in my day job. I'm a software engineer at a company in the Midwest. So I specifically program in Java. This whole DogeYip is programmed in JavaScript, and I don't usually program in JavaScript, so it's a lot of new stuff for me. And that's another challenge that I've been faced, is just trying to read through examples of what people do in JavaScript and how it's different than Java.
Okay. And were you primarily a software guy, or are you a hardware person, or?
Software.
Software. And so let's talk about, I guess there was a bit, I don't know how much of a dust up it is, but let's talk about, because when people are writing messages through DogeYip, they are actually putting the messages in the blockchain. And I don't know if this is actually anything to be concerned about, if this is an exaggeration, but could you explain what blockchain bloat is? Because I hear that a lot, particularly with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really know a lot about blockchain bloat before I started this. And a lot of people kept on bringing it up, so I've learned a little bit along the way. And from what I can understand, there's really two types of blockchain bloat. There's blockchain bloat in that you have a bunch of coins that haven't been spent, and apparently coins that haven't been spent have to be kept in RAM on any miner that is participating in the blockchain. This might be specific to Dogecoin. I'm not exactly sure, but what happens is, and where I originally miswrote this application, was I was creating a whole bunch of small transactions, and all these transactions had little bits of coin in them, and so apparently for every message I sent, I was causing every miner to have to locate another 20 bytes of RAM to their server, and that's bad because 20 bytes will eventually turn into 200 bytes. That turns into 2,000 bytes. That turn into 2 gigabytes, and it kind of just spirals from there. The other type of bloat, and I could be wrong on this bloat thing, but this is just from what I've learned so far, is the other type of bloat is more of a hard drive bloat, where the blockchain gets bigger, but you don't necessarily have to locate more RAM to it. So hard disk is cheaper, and bloat there might still be a problem. And I think it's more of a problem in that what if you increase the amount of um, the the size of the blockchain faster than hard drive prices come down in price. That's my understanding. So what happens is it then starts costing the miners more money to host the blockchain on their hard drives than they receive in transaction fees to put the transaction onto the hard drive.
Okay, well, that's the first part I can understand. You don't want to create or add, but the second part with the whole hard drive thing, that always mind boggled me because I can see the hard drive issue has been settled. It's getting cheaper and cheaper. I mean, with SD disk and computers the way it is, I think that aspect of it is being very exaggerated. I think some of it has to do with when people are thinking years down the road where maybe the blockchain might be like, I don't know, 5 terabytes because everyone's using it and they're sitting on these addresses or something like that. But at this point in time, I don't think it's terribly too much of a concern. And so I was just wondering, did you have to re-encode to address this issue, or are the messages still going to be placed in the Dogecoin blockchain?
So right now, I'm pretty much looking into creating a separate blockchain specifically for DogeYip. And yeah, whether or not this issue is exaggerated or not, I think it's just safer. The software, the DogeYip software, is still going to work on any blockchain, and the idea is just to have like the default settings for DogeYip to use its own blockchain, its own API calls eventually. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable to take that, go in that direction, just because people are more likely going to want to use a software that tries to, take in what other people are thinking into perspective too, and not just try to bash your way through everyone else's goodwill. So.
Okay. And you're saying you're thinking of creating your own possible blockchain. Is this like a Dogecoin 2.0 where it's like a token system, or is this actually you creating something completely different, like a Factom or storage?
No, I think I'm just gonna clone maybe the Dogecoin blockchain, maybe the Bitcoin blockchain. I know one Reddit user, Patrick, recommended it's like a voting blockchain instead of a mining blockchain, which had its advantages too. So yeah, I've never done anything like that before, so it might take a while to figure that out.
But meanwhile, is DogeYip still going to be running pretty much the same way? Because I know you did some updates a couple days ago or such.
Yep, yeah, currently it's still using the Dogecoin blockchain, and I don't think anyone's too concerned about it right now, just because it's minimal, the amount of traffic that's going on, as far as I know. Yeah, I think with the hardware bloat side, the second issue, I think that's more of a concern of what happens if we increase the blockchain size too quickly. Not that it'll grow, but that it'll grow too fast.
Okay.
So.
Now, what did you like when you started this? What did you envision like the end goal for you for this microblog? Did you just want it to be something that's a niche thing, or do you see this as something that could be almost a mainstream?
I mean, I would love for it to be a mainstream thing. Maybe it's a mainstream thing, maybe it's a niche thing, maybe I'm the only one that ever uses it. I don't know. It's cool to me to use, so I'm gonna keep using it. But yeah, I mean, it addresses a couple problems. Like, for instance, on the web, a lot of web pages and a lot of blogs aren't permanent. You see them, they come and go, and I read something earlier today that the average lifespan of a website is 100 days. So, if you put something in, say, a blockchain that's going to be around a while, that that data is going to be there easily more than 100 days. I don't expect Dogecoin to go away in the next year. So I would expect my content to be around for at least another year. And it's also, the other goals are pretty much to get around censorship laws. Like, one thing that really got me to try to think about a type of like decentralized microblog or decentralized like Twitter type service is finding out that the U.S. has backdoors to Twitter and Google and Facebook, so that they can access your data whenever they want. Or there was an email company this summer that had to close their doors due to refusing to give up backdoor access to their clients' emails. And I mean, stuff like that is just, it bothers me a little bit. And I'm in a position where I have the technical abilities to write something that could possibly mathematically not allow for this. I mean, another thing that I'm working on right now with DogeYip is to try to figure out how to be able to send private encrypted messages between DogeYip users. So, like, let's say me and you both have a DogeYip account, and you'll display your public encryption key, and I can use that public encryption key to encode a message, send it to you with some metadata, and you'll be the only one that can read it. And you'll only be able to read it if you type in your username and password on the site. And the pluses about DogeYip, the other things that are working for it, is if you use client-side data instead of centralized data, it's way harder to shut you down. I mean, sure, I could be asked to take down the source code, but the source code uses Git as its revision history, and so copies of this code on their computer. So, yeah, I mean, that's really the end goal, is to try to allow users to be able to post what they want and not have to worry about it being censored in some way.
So I was going to ask you about that because, yes, the DogeYip is permanently there, and I was going to ask you if there would be, like, for those who wanted a private aspect to it, where while those messages are permanently recorded, only those you want to see it could see it. And so I like the private messaging idea. Would you, in essence, because you're concerned about censorship and privacy and backdoors, would you enable like a group setting where someone would go off and do like almost a group chat?
I don't know how that would work at the moment. I haven't gotten past thinking about just person to person at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess I'm taking baby steps.
Okay. Well, would DogeYip be enabled beyond just using words? Would it be able to do pictures or audio or video, or is that too much for that type of a system at this time?
I think I looked at this early, maybe a month ago, just to try to get an idea of if it would be possible to post pictures, and pretty much you could do it, but it's going to start costing a lot of money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I figure that if you base64 encode an image, you could save a 100-pixel image in the Dogecoin blockchain for about 1,000 Dogecoins, and that should tile. So if you want to go 200 pixels by 200 pixels by 200 pixels, I would expect that to be, say, 4,000 Dogecoins to do. And at that point, then we start getting concerned about the bloat issue number 2 also, the hard drive bloat, because that's a lot of that's basically those coin numbers come from how many transactions there are. So if it's 1,000 dog coins to post an image that's 100 pixel by 100 pixels, it means you're making about 1,000 transactions to post that picture.
Okay. All right. Well, that shoots it down because I was thinking, that would be so neat to be able to, either share like, not necessarily means, but business concept like icons, or for example, for the censorship thing, like pictures from one place to another in a safe manner and not worry about anything. But I do think that strongly that the person-to-person message is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Do you foresee any way for DogeYip to be an app, or are you concerned about any backdoor aspect if you were to do an app?
It's the DogeYip. It's already written with Bootstrap, so if you load it up on your phone, it should
Mm-hmm.
behave in a mobile manner.
Mm-hmm.
An app, I know there's currently programs, and I'm forgetting what the programs' names are right now, but I know some of my coworkers are pretty excited about them. What they do is they turn web applications with JavaScript front end
Mm-hmm.
into native iOS and native Android apps. React maybe is a name of an open source software that does this, but I could be wrong on the name. But from what they've talked about, performance is good, and speed is good. I haven't had time to look into that yet, but yeah, doing something more like that's more on my radar than writing a standalone app, just because of code base fracturing. I don't want to have to maintain multiple code bases.
Yeah, because you have to do it for Windows, Android, and then iOS, and whatever other operating system out there. I can understand that.
Yeah. Back on storing pictures, one thing that may help is once the DogeYip blockchain gets released, one idea that was mentioned by Patrick was to have the opcodes have, say, a 20 kilobyte or more data limit, and at that point, then you could store the entire base64 encoded picture in that opcode, and that should be way cheaper to do than to do it in the Dogecoin blockchain.
And you wouldn't have to worry
So
about
it's possible. It's just not. What's that?
you wouldn't have to worry about the hard drive bloat if you were to develop a system like that.
I think people would just expect it if
Okay.
you're a miner using that blockchain. And I think what would end up happening is the price of the coin, how much the coin is worth, would adequately reflect how much bloat there was on the blockchain. It would probably directly relate to the cost of storage of data instead of how, say, the Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies right now more reflect how much electricity it costs to create that coin.
Okay. So you have some plans for DogeYip. Do you have any other ambitions or any other aspects now that you kind of got in, dipped your toes into cryptocurrencies with Dogecoin, whether it's encoding or anything of that nature?
Right now, no. Maybe in the future, if something else comes up that's interesting. It's more, if it's interesting, yeah, it's fun to work on, and if it's not interesting, I have other things I'd like to do. So, yeah, I guess it depends on what is happening specifically.
Okay. And have you been able to like communicate? I know you've spoken a few times with people within the community to kind of get people on board and come over, because that's how I saw your thing was through Reddit, really. And I went on there and waiting for it to get better and doing some messages and stuff like that. I mean, have you had a pretty good response from the community, or whether it be questions or usage?
Yeah, I've had some good questions. I've had lots of positive reaction. Pretty much everyone I show the idea to in person or online just loves the idea. And I'm pretty much gonna move on if people think it's a good idea and I can keep on improving, the code, improving the product, improving the end user experience, it's gonna turn into something. And if people stop thinking that it's a cool idea, then it's not going to turn out. And if I stop trying to innovate, it's also not going to turn out. But if both those things happen, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, I'm excited too because it's one of the few projects I've seen that's being developed on, in the Dogecoin community that I was really excited about. It's like, this is a neat idea. This is something that should be happening. And I was like, why aren't more people here? Because I tweet about it, I talk about it, I was like, people need to be here and use this. I mean, you can write anything you want, and people are going to stop and read it because they know you paid for it. It's like a paid advertisement, but not an advertisement. It's a paid thought, really, is how I think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the shout outs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited with it, and it's one of these projects I think is good for the community. It gets people interested in it. It also lets them see how, Dogecoin or the blockchain itself can be used in a different way. Maybe it gets people to, have their own eureka moment and develop something for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the code's all open source, so anyone can fork this. Anyone can, add their own contributions, or even, look through. It's pretty much without limitation. You can take whatever code is there and use it. And so, if you can, read JavaScript, go in there and start looking at how some of this stuff is done, and people are more than welcome to code for code, or letter for letter, just rip the stuff off the source code and use it somewhere else. That's how people learn how to do stuff.
Yeah, it is how. Yeah, that is how people learn to use stuff. And this is something I ask, when I speak to individuals that are a bit more tech savvy than myself. But George, when was like the first time that you either programmed something, or maybe you took something apart as a kid, that you realized that you wanted to be computing?
I realized I wanted to do software, like write software. Specifically, I wanted to write software in Java when it was maybe my senior year in college, and I had to take Intro to Java Programming because I was going to school for mathematics, and I was going to do actuarial science with that. And for actuarial science, you needed to take computer classes. So that's how I got into computers originally. And I thought, wow, this is neat. I can write an if statement in Java, and so I can write an if statement. I can write what did I write? I wrote like an MMO within my first year of learning Java, just because I was excited about Java, and I just kept on typing away at it. I never made any money on that Java project, but I learned a ton. Just researching how to make someone move on the screen, or make an enemy move independently of you, and how to do collision detection and stuff like that. Just how can I make the avatar jump on the screen? So I mean that's when I knew that I really wanted to do programming. It was tons of like little challenges, and you had to keep on inventing solutions over and over and over again until you finally had something that worked. And then once something worked, you had to invent more solutions to make it work well. So it's just little puzzles to solve, almost like doing Sudoku over and over again.
Oh, I love Sudoku. I love doing it, and people think I'm crazy when I do it in pen because I don't often, X out or erase. I sit there and I go through the boxes. My system is going through each grid one at a time. I don't see it as a whole and stuff like that. But it's amazing that you talk about Sudoku. I don't think people are as into it as I thought they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
I think the first game I ever wrote, I was in high school,
okay.
and somehow I got really big into coding code on the TI-83 Plus calculator, and so I still have a game out there somewhere. It's Clue for the TI-83 Plus, and I haven't played it since I was in high school, so I don't even remember if it's
I
if it's good or not.
yeah.
At the time, I thought it was good enough to publish.
I love those. Those were things that everyone would trade in either math class or English class or whatever. Break out the calculator and trade the games, and then people started making their own games, and some of them were really silly. And I tried myself, but I couldn't do it myself. But I just was amazed that people were able to. It was very basic, but was able to put it on the calculator, and then you're sitting down and playing downhill skier, or I think the worst one I think I saw was like the going postal or whatever. But there was all these different games, and it was just amazing. It was very basic. So what was your game? What was your theme of your game?
Oh, it was Clue. I ported Clue the board game to the 83 Plus.
Oh, I would not have done school at all. I would just been sitting there playing cool.
Yeah, but it's back to when I say the average life of a web page was 100 days.
Yes.
I did look at a screenshot maybe half a year ago because we were talking at work about our first coding projects, and I brought up that Clue was my first coding project, pretty much, and I looked at a screenshot, and it had my old website on there, and it's not even close to even being around. It was like anti-ign.cjb.net. It doesn't exist anymore at all. I don't think it's existed for a decade. So I don't know, just a random tangent there.
Okay. Well, what about your MO that you were trying to develop for Java? What was the story arc there, or were you just so focused on just moving people and creating places?
Yeah, the idea was to create a MMO RPG type thing, but kind of like what if you took Super Mario World and made it into an MMORPG? You had the 2D side scroller thing going on.
Okay.
And I was trying to just basically string a bunch of those levels together, and instead of leveling up, you'd basically have your character stats of how fast you've completed different levels with high score speed runs, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, that sounds interesting. That actually sounds like a Mario game I would play. Because it's still side scroll and you're still doing all the stuff, but it's more, instead of just random getting coins and being fun with it, you also have a nice competitive level where you have to accomplish set goals within each level.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is it gave you a reason to replay levels too.
Yeah,
So
because
you weren't
then
just attempting one time.
yeah, it wasn't like with regular Mario where it's like, okay, how many levels you can go to without dying. It's like how fast can you go, how much can you get, and that's okay. That was pretty clever. Have you ever thought about going back into that, or are you not interested in creating games?
I am. It's more of a time thing. You can only do so much in a day. So I like to run. I like to go skiing. I like to lift weights. I like to hang out with friends. So you can only fit so much in a day, and sometimes you gotta cut stuff out.
Okay. And where do you see foreseeably with DogeYip and any potential projects out there? What would you see like for Dogecoin in a year? What do you see happening as far as like projects out there that you might be interested that are being developed?
I'm not really aware of other projects that are being developed for DogeYip or Dogecoin. I know someone posted on Reddit that they were creating an application that returns like statistics and stuff, kind of like SoChain is doing, which is nice because it's if you have multiple options out there to do something, it's less likely that you're going to lose all your options all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that, but I haven't, I've only been around the Dogecoin Reddit for maybe 2 months now,
Okay.
and so I haven't necessarily seen maybe all the projects that have been proposed at this time.
Okay. So for someone who's relatively new to the community, what do you think is the biggest, drawback and what is the biggest plus for this community as someone who's just kind of getting into it?
hmm I think the biggest plus for me was just getting coins right away, and I got maybe right like within a day I had like 100 dog coins to use, and then there's this Reddit user named Mr. Dick Dog
Mm-hmm.
uh, who sent me like 10,000 dog coins, and then I didn't have to worry about hitting faucets every day because 10,000 is way more than 100. So
Yes.
that was nice. I think, yeah, there's just generosity in general is just a huge plus for Dogecoin. So I mean, I don't know that other places might necessarily not, someone might not randomly give you what is 10,000 Dogecoins, like $1.40 give or take.
Yeah.
But it's not a lot of money, but it's definitely more than just nothing. So that was really nice. I was pretty happy. Uh, and let's see, the biggest drawback. I don't know, maybe accessibility. I know I showed my brother Dog Yip, and he said the biggest thing that he didn't want to do is have to go through the hassle of buying Dogecoin to use the site.
Okay.
So I mean that's the drawback. It is just getting coins in people's hands.
Yeah, that's the big drawback for all the cryptocurrencies right now is just making it very accessible for anyone to basically just like you go to a convenience store, buy a soda. That's how you should get your coins pretty much.
hmm
Yeah. Okay. And so your brother looked at your site, liked it, but he just didn't want to go and find find coins.
Yep.
I've when I explain it to people, I've had the same thing. They're like, "Oh, that's neat, that's great," but it's like, no, it's really good. Financial freedom. They're like, eh.
Yeah.
It's like that internet thing. All right, George. Well, is there anything else you want anyone to know about DogeYip or any other projects you may have out there that to make people more aware?
I'd really like for people just to use it, to go out there and, it's free to make an account, and you only have to send 100 dog coins. That's 2 pennies worth to really start posting anything on it. Just try it out, and you know, there's not much to lose.
Okay. Well, I like to thank you very much for coming on and talking to me about DogeYip. I've actually learned quite a bit, particularly how the issue of the blockchain bloat, but particularly just how the direction you want to take your site. And I think it is fitting within the community spirit of Dogecoin. And I thank you for creating it. Like I said, I think it's a very neat thing, and I encourage more Shibes to use it.
Thank you, and thanks for taking an interest in having me on tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. And that is it for the show. To the moon, everybody. All right. I'm going to stop the broadcast.